I don't think that it's controversial to say that the Joker is Batman's #1 foe. I mean, whenever there's a Batman franchise out there that doesn't have the Joker, people start asking where he is. See 2013's Beware the Batman, for instance. Given that he's such an iconic character, I can imagine the pressure that the creative teams must feel to make sure that he's portrayed correctly. But at the same time, just doing the same thing over and over again is practically the definition of pointlessness. Over the decades, a lot of different people have tried to put their own stamp on the character. See Cesar Romero's hyperactive criminal prankster, Jack Nicholson's murderous gangster clown, and Heath Ledger's hobo anarchist. They're all quite different from each other, but at the same time they are still recognisably the Joker. One of the most visually distinct versions of the Joker appeared in 2004's The Batman cartoon. I'm sorry, you have to say it that way. But despite his unique character design, at his core, I think that this Joker was very much a halfway house between the classic absurd Joker and the more modern psychotic clown. In his earliest appearances, he wore a bold purple and orange straitjacket, meant to evoke his more familiar purple suit and orange shirt, and he walked around barefoot. Joker is nothing without his trademark grin, and this Joker had a very jagged smile with jigsaw puzzle piece-like teeth. They looked hideous, but slotted together fairly well when he smiled. Likewise, his hair was huge, resembling a jester's hat. He was also quite adept at fighting, like most of the characters in this action-oriented show, but his moveset was more chaotic, with him swinging around like an ape and spiraling all over the place. Over time, the design would become a little less distinctive and have him wear the purple suit, which is a shame. He also became less physically active, but at least he kept his massive hair, bare feet, and that jagged grin. Even if you don't care for the design, at least it was its own thing, and voice actor Kevin Michael Richardson absolutely owned the role. This is his second best work after Principal Lewis in American Dad. No, this is not up for discussion. Despite all these visual differences, I clearly see the source material in the way that he was characterized. This Joker takes a lot of inspiration from the 50s comic books, where the Joker would be armed with preposterous gadgets and tools to aid his mad schemes. Towering stilts, oversized gumballs, a custom Joker train, the works. This Joker really leaned into what I would normally view as the negative tropes of comic book stories. Absurd gadgets with no explanation of where they came from or how they were created. That kind of goofy writing personifies the time period when comic books were viewed as a throwaway medium for children that the writers were often embarrassed to be associated with. Although I think it does work quite well in Joker stories. Your mileage for this kind of thing will, of course, vary. I could totally see why this kind of story would appeal to younger viewers, or those that don't want to think about things too much and want some escapism. The Batman's Joker wasn't a cruel gangster, he just wanted to make people laugh, and get rich along the way. Although at the end of the day it was all about what he found funny. He didn't care about who he had to hurt to achieve this. But that doesn't mean that he is entirely goofy. He was kind of a bridge between the 1950s comic book Joker and the more modern psychotic clown that we saw in Tim Burton's Batman and Batman the Animated Series. And to do this, the writers clearly took inspiration from Alan Moore's seminal Joker story, The Killing Joke. In this comic, the Joker famously shoots Barbara Gordon and kidnaps Commissioner Gordon in an attempt to drive him mad, to prove that all it takes is one bad day for anyone to become a monster like he is, even a paragon of virtue like Commissioner Gordon. The Joker was wrong, of course, Gordon didn't lose his mind, but that hasn't stopped people from repeating that ideology as if it was a fact. I already did a video talking about Batman the Animated Series' response to this ideology in the episode Trial, which has had a load of views, so I don't really need to promote it, but if you were interested in the subject, then check it out. I've included a link in the info button and the video's description. The Batman's Joker has a similar viewpoint, and he spends much of his time trying to corrupt the people of Gotham to show that he is not a freak or a weirdo. He thinks that his reaction to falling into that vat of mind-altering chemicals after his bad day was sane and rational. Speaking of the Joker's origin, one thing that distinguishes this Joker from all others that came before is that Batman seemed to be completely unconnected to the events that led to his creation. In the comic books, the Joker had previously been the Red Hood, a masked criminal that had been trying to rob the chemical plant, but he either fell or dived into a vat of chemicals to escape Batman. The origin of their Joker is only ever hinted at, but they seem to suggest that he was a regular working stiff at a factory before he accidentally fell into the vat of chemicals. Following this, he just turned up one day and decided to set up shop in a cell in Arkham Asylum without the staff knowing. And I think that's an important point. He wasn't a criminal, he wasn't a murderer, he was just a man that was bored with his day job and dreamed of being a comedian. And he lost his mind after a terrible accident at work. When Batman and Hugo Strange used the device to go into the Joker's mind to try to find out where he had hidden Detective Ellen Yin, we see the Joker's version of Gotham. A funhouse city filled with different versions of himself. And that's how he thinks of people. He thinks we are all the same deep down. Also note that he dressed the kidnapped Yin as a jester, another way of expressing the idea that he views her as being just like him. I think that the most well-known example of Joker trying to prove that good people are the same as him is probably Detective Ethan Bennett. During a string of robberies where the Joker used a chemical substance he called Joker Putty, another preposterous creation that he probably stole, he used it to turn anything it touched into malleable putty. Along the way, he kidnapped and psychologically tortured Ethan Bennett, telling him that all it takes for a good person to become like him is to have one particularly rough day. When Batman and Ellen Yin arrive to rescue Bennett in the struggle, Bennett is exposed to the vapours of the Joker Putty, and later becomes the monstrous Clayface. However, the Joker didn't intend for this to happen. He had wanted to spray Bennett with the putty, but Batman knocked it out of his hands. He didn't even notice Bennett inhaling the fumes. Although for a hint as to what might have happened if Bennett had been fully exposed, we only need to look at Basil Karlo, who later chose to ingest the formula to give himself shape-changing powers. But that's an entirely separate topic for a later day. So in the case of Bennett, the Joker did indirectly push him over the deep end. But it wasn't just the bad day that broke him, it was the exposure to the hazardous chemicals that warped his body and mind. Joker didn't actually know that he had created Clayface, but when he found out, he was delighted, going as far as referring to him as his son. Even when Bennett tried to go straight, he found it too hard to try to be a regular person and decided to just give in to the clay. For a while anyway. But again, we'll save that for the eventual Clayface video. Aside from Ethan Bennett, Joker also corrupted his goons Punch and Judy, a hulking pair of mute muscle-bound henchmen that thought of themselves as Joker's sidekicks, but he thought of them as their help. Still, he gave them appropriate clown-themed identities and always involved them in his schemes. He didn't abuse them, aside from the odd verbal dressing down. They were valued members of his team. When it came time for Joker to seek out an actual sidekick of his own, he started by trying to corrupt a naughty schoolboy named Donnie, who had aspirations of becoming a comedian. The problem was he just wasn't very funny. Joker took Donnie under his wing in response to Batman teaming up with Batgirl to save Mayor Grange from Joker's insanely spicy chili, which in itself is a pretty tired scheme ripped straight from Looney Tunes. In order to persuade Donnie to join him, Joker appealed to his vanity, encouraging him to help come up with zany plots, before giving him his own costumed identity of Prank. As an aside, the name Prank was used by the assistant to the Trickster in the Flash's 90s TV series. Note that the Trickster was played by Mark Hamill, a few years before he played the Joker in Batman the Animated Series. However, Prank was less committed to the gig than Joker would have liked. He wanted to make fun of people, not physically hurt or kill them, while Joker saw their painful deaths as the ultimate punchline. As such, Joker decided that the missing element was a dunk in toxic chemicals, and tried to throw Donnie into the same concoction that had created him. Fortunately, Batman and Batgirl intervened. Maybe Prank hadn't been pushed far enough psychologically. After all, his bad day was being booed out of a comedy club and given a week of detention for disrupting class. But this wouldn't be the last time that Joker sought out a sidekick, and the next time he succeeded, even without the chemicals. This time he targeted TV psychologist Dr. Harleen Quinzel, who was fired after she lured Bruce Wayne onto her show under false pretenses and gossiped about him. Fortunately for her, Joker was a big fan of the show, and seeing that she now had a lot of free time on her hands, invited her to join him. Dr. Quinzel agreed to the offer, thinking that putting together an expose on the Joker would be her ticket back to the limelight. All she wanted was to be taken seriously as a psychologist, and she was very upfront about that with Joker, which he respected, kind of. Now, Harley's bad day didn't come about at Joker's hands. She was publicly embarrassed and fired on TV, and that TV show was a huge part of her identity. So Joker just stepped in to fill the void, so to speak. He offered her unfettered fun and a chance to get revenge on the people that she believed had wronged her. Joker gently coaxed her into madness, and it really didn't take much effort. When the Joker said that all it takes is one rough day to drive anyone to madness, he wasn't exactly right. Ethan Bennett needed to be demeaned by his boss, psychologically tortured, and had inhaled Joker putty fumes before he was driven insane. Punch and Judy didn't need any motivation, they were just mean. Little Prank refused to go over the edge, even after being pushed by Joker. Conversely, Harleen Quinzel didn't really need all that much persuading. So I guess you could say that Joker was at least partially right. Some people are clearly more susceptible to descending into madness than others. And for everyone else, I guess there's always toxic chemicals. Okay, that's it for this week's essay. If you liked the video, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, leave a comment, tell all your friends about me. You know how YouTube works. If you really enjoyed the video and have the means, please consider making use of the thanks button to send a buck or two my way, because every little helps. I offer channel memberships for $1.99 a month. This will get you early access to my weekly video essay, priority responses to your comments, members-only videos, custom emojis, and an icon on your profile indicating that you're one of my people. And special thanks to my current channel members, who are all listed on the screen right now. Next time, I want to talk about a rarely discussed direct-to-DVD film that is not at all part of the DC animated universe. But if you kind of squint, then it sort of maybe just about fits. And that film is Justice League Doom, a story where the Justice League are indirectly attacked by one of their own. Hope to see you then.